Honest,
But I think it worked for how crazy and batshit like the Suicide Squad is. I think it almost you almost have to do something so weird
yeah,
for them to have that kind of villain.
like there, it had to be some ridiculous conclusion because of what the movie built up to.
Yeah,
So it almost feels like, and it's funny because Watchmen is DC as well. You know how Zack Snyder didn't do the squid bit from the end of
oh
the
yes,
comic book. It was like, what if, Watchmen had included that crazy ass ending rather than going with the more grounded ending. It was like Suicide Squad did that with Starro,
yeah.
and it's insane, And then they released like the small, like the small starfish that
Like the face huggers.
yeah, and they do like the mind control, which is hilarious that nobody realizes. Like, hey, if we put on like masks or something, like they won't be able to control us. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially because I
Yeah.
think once they attach to you, like you can't get it doesn't you can't go back, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what the thinker said. Like they're once they attach, there's no taking them off.
It's like nothing underneath, or if you were to take it off, it would like rip off their face or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. It rips off part of their skin, like it rips off like the flesh from their face. Insane. I loved the line. I think it's towards the end when they're eventually they've defeated Sorrow, and he projects his voice through the general, and he said, "I was just happy floating around in space, looking at the stars," because and we get to see it in a part of the movie where um, the U.S. astronauts actually capture him. They see him floating around in space, in orbit, I think of Earth, I guess, and they capture him, and then that's how Starro ends up getting to Earth. But I guess he was just floating around in space, just looking at the universe. But I thought this guy was kind of like, oh man, that kind of sucks. He was just floating around minding his own business, and then we gotta go around and fuck his day up and turn him into a villain.
Which is why, well, that's pretty much the whole premise of the movie. Turns out, like that Amanda Waller, kind of secretly, she sends the whole squad, but she sends Peacemaker to make sure that to destroy this evidence that links, like the U.S. to Starro, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty much the whole mission is to destroy any evidence that the U.S. government was in fact responsible for like the whole Starro
like experimentations and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
which is insane.
because they're doing some horrible stuff, and that's the reason why Rick Flag ultimately decides on exposing them, because he finds out that they were doing experiments on not only women and men and women, but also on children to see what effects it would have on children. And that was kind of the line where he was basically the line in the sand that he would never cross, which was to hurt children or anything like that, and ultimately gets him killed. But yeah, I think that the involvement of the United States, that's like you said, that's why Amanda Waller sent them there in the first place. But that was never told to them except for Peacemaker. Peacemaker knew the whole plan the entire time, and he was kind of there as a what would he be? Kind of like a
Insurance policy.
Right, yeah.
Where like he's keeping an eye, like he's the mole, like he's keeping an eye, making sure that everybody is kind of dumb to the real agenda, and that's why he was slowly taking out everybody out. He takes out Flag. He was going to take out Ratcatcher 2. Had of course Bloodsport, in a crazy way, kind of catches him in the act of assassinating Ratcatcher, and then he, Bloodsport in return kills Peacemaker, or so he thinks he kills him.
Yeah.
If you're, for those who stayed for the end credit scenes, and if you don't read pop culture news, then you know that Peacemaker made it out alive. He's still alive, and that's how we're getting the show.
Yeah. When that happened, I was under the impression that the Peacemaker series was a prequel for whatever reason. I think that's what someone had mentioned in some news article that I had read, but they weren't sure if it was going to be a continuation of his character or a prequel, and I was just under the impression that, they're going to do some type of prequel just to show where he comes from or whatever. And then when that happens, I'm like, how they, he gets killed, or so we think, and I'm thinking the whole time, okay, so the series is going to be a prequel. Well, that's kind of dumb. They're doing a prequel for a character that's inevitably going to be dead, in the present time. But yeah, like you said, if you stick around, you see that he is not dead, that they were able to save him. And I initially thought they were talking about Rick Flag when she was like, I'm surprised his heart was still beating. After this whole thing, we were able to pull him out of the rubble. And I was like, oh man, they saved Rick Flag. That's awesome. Cool. He's not dead. And then it's fucking John Cena just sitting there. I'm like, oh my God. Like,
and they're making,
why is the bad guy gets to live?
They're making fun of him. They're like, oh, this douchebag over here. What?
Yeah.
Oh, and then of course, Weasel. Weasel is not dead after all either.
Yeah, he ends up waking up on the beach all alone after everyone's left, and he kind of just. I love the way he runs. He kind of like wobbles.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. The CGI that they did with him was so great. It was amazing.
Also, I believe that's, I don't know if you know this already, Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, did the mocap for that.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. I love how he puts him in all of his stuff. He was in all of the Guardian stuff too. He surprisingly did the mocap for Rocket during the scenes, which was
really?
Yeah. Like the whole time he's kind of like, when Rocket's walking, he's like, I don't know if you know what like duck walking is. Like you're kind of like, yeah. So he's doing that the whole time. Like as they're walking together and stuff, and when they have close-ups, it's him in a mocap suit. But yeah, to get back to Suicide Squad, the blonde lady, the woman who is with who's there to check up on John Cena or our Peacemaker in the hospital, that's James Gunn's wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You got me on that one. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I only knew that because I follow him on Instagram and I've seen her. I'm like, oh, she's super pretty, and I'm like, why is she with him? It's like she's super pretty, and then it's like, oh, like James Gunn. I mean, no offense to James Gunn, I love James Gunn, but he looks just like a normal person, like a normal guy. He's not like the most handsome. He's not ugly, but he's not, he's a normal looking dude, like
neutral.
And then I'm like, yeah. And she looks like she used to be a model or something. I'm not shaming James Gunn, if anyone's listening. I'm not shaming any normal looking people. I am very normal looking, so. But yeah. A favorite scene? Did you have a favorite scene?
Favorite scene? I'm still gonna have to go with the mercenary slaughter in the jungle. Yeah. I'd agree with that one. I love that one. And then also it's more of a touching scene, but it's the one towards the end when Ratcatcher is basically calling all of the rats to in Corto Maltese to attack Starro. And you see, we learned earlier on in the movie that Bloodsport has a phobia of rats, and that's why he hates Sebastian. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And all these rats, a huge herd, a stampede of rats is coming towards them, and he kind of just curls up in the ground. And I love how she puts, her arm over him to kind of protect him and kind of, calm him or whatever.
and they're crawling over him. They're crawling over both of them, and you get the last flashback where you get to see Taika Waititi talking to a smaller version, a little girl version of Ratcatcher 2. And she's like, why? She asks him, why rats, Papa? And then he says, well, rats are the lowliest, most despised creatures in all of the world. And if they have a purpose, then so do we. And I thought that was a really cool little one-liner. Basically, I took it as, everyone has a purpose in life. Even the despicable people who are in the Suicide Squad, they all have a purpose, even if you don't feel like you do.
Yeah, totally. That's a great quote. And to lean farther into that, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I love when they're when Bloodsport and Harley and all the survivors are leaving in the chopper, I think it is. We get like the kind of ending where Sebastian is hanging out on Bloodsport's leg, and he finally like is able to show him affection, after everything.
Right. Yeah, he starts petting him.
Yeah.
And we totally glossed over the fact that Harley was pretty much in this movie. I know we mentioned her in the beginning.
Let's talk about Harley, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. How did you feel about her being in this? I feel like I've actually heard a lot of complaints about her character kind of feeling like she didn't even really need to be in the film, but they only put her in because she's so popular. I can understand why Warner Bros. Would want to put her in there, but I feel like she did have a purpose for this film.
Yeah, no, and I feel like she was one of the how do you say, like the greater things about the first one, and so that the fact that they kept it canon and they didn't really discredit the Ayer's version, and they kind of played off of, obviously Harley's relevant because of Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
They play off the fact that she's still broken up with Joker, and I don't know if you noticed that little detail on her jacket. It says
it says "Live Free, Die Clown."
Yes, and that's obviously like her feeling her freedom from Joker's kind of clutches, you know what I mean? So it's like, I thought that was a really cool detail. And then her kind of going through, I don't think I agree with the fact that she didn't need to. It felt like she didn't need to be, or she was shoehorned into this, because she kind of goes and does her own thing. She's kind of left for dead by Amanda Waller at first. And then she again references Joker, and she's like dating like this like dictator, and then he says something. He
goes on about killing all of his rivals and showing them that he means business, basically.
And she responds by gunning him down immediately. And she's like, I told myself, like, next time I was dating somebody and they showed me any kind of red flags, I would do the right thing. And I love that, how they're kind of touching on like I don't know, like women empowerment in a way, which was fun. I really enjoyed how she starts off and she has like all her gear on, but then she ends up having to wear like this not little, but just like a random kind of fancy dress, like through the whole movie almost.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't expecting, but it works. And of course, Harley gets in trouble. Everybody thinks that she needs rescuing, but she's already rescued herself. So then the guys find her, but they're too late. And then she's like, well, I can go back inside if you guys want to still carry out the mission.
Speaking on that scene, right before Harley shows herself, everyone's in position. They're all going over the walkie, like, all right, everyone's ready to go. And, Bloodsport shoots a little grappling hook up to the ceiling, and he's going to climb up the side of the wall. And then we got Peacemaker